Hi everybody, and welcome to DnD Horror Stories with DnD Doge. In today's video, we have a story about a keeper's experience with players coming from D&D 5th edition to Call of Cthulhu, and how that can be a bit of a steep change for some players. A story about a dungeon master using AI to make inappropriate things involving his Dungeons & Dragons players, and much more. But before we get into those, here's a kitty to try to get some likes for the video. Kitties always get likes, right? But with that said, let's get into some D&D horror stories. 5th edition kids versus Cthulhu equals crying and rage quitting. By Reddit user Hugh Jazzcrack. I run Call of Cthulhu, have for 4 editions. I love it in all its various forms of delicious terror. Decided to run some of the Gateways to Terror 7th edition scenarios on Roll20 not too long ago. 95% go very well. I earned some permanent players and formed a few great campaigns out of it. But there was a couple incidents. It was, I believe, the Necropolis scenario. 2 players were new and had come from 5th edition and wanted to play Cthulhu. They claimed to have owned the starter set and read it, and familiarized themselves with the rules of Call of Cthulhu 7th edition. I thought their character stories were a little too verbose for a one-shot, but that shows some moxie, so I was like, sweet, right? Well, as you may be aware, in Cthulhu, there's a mechanic called sanity. Woe betide those who fail too many sanity rolls. But as a linchpin mechanic of the system, and being assured that the two were familiar with the rules, I wielded them to full effect, as any competent keeper would. And these gents did indeed fail sanity rolls. One in fact so badly that his character fled in terror right into a collapsing brick wall, killing him after being buried. The other rolled, failed, and fired his gun in abject terror, striking a fellow investigator, who was fine with it by the way, being a Cthulhu player veteran. Both these gents flipped their lids. One said, "That is not in the rules. Why would it be?" I calmly showed them, but they started yelling how stupid it was, and trying to get the rest of the group to join them and yelling at me. But the group was like, "What are you doing, dude? It's part of the game. It's a one-shot." Cue the other kid, who shot the fellow player character in terror, agreeing with the complainer, and saying that I was, quote, "taking away their player agency," and that I was an abusive DM. It's Keeper, kid. They then quit all contact with the group and blocked everyone after their Whisper campaign failed, even going so far as messaging people in other games of mine to, quote, "warn them of me," failing to grasp that the people they were contacting were not only friends, but avid players of Call of Cthulhu that I have killed dozens of times in games. Fast forward a few months, and the same rage quitting happens when another player, with only 5th edition experience, fails a sanity roll and gets taken out because of it. Then, mid-game, straight up tells everyone to F off and leaves in a huff. At least they didn't contact everyone after, but dang. Any other Cthulhu judges suffer the same douchery? And is this just a case of, in 5th edition you are superheroes, but in Cthulhu you are powerless, and their egos couldn't handle it? Now, I've never personally played Call of Cthulhu, but I do want to at some point. And with any game, you kinda have to agree with the rules of said game in order to get the full enjoyment out of it. I don't think that the problem is that these players came from D&D 5th edition, but more a problem with those players just generally not liking things not going their way. Like OP said, 95% of the time, things go good, and I'm sure some of those players also came from D&D 5th edition. Though, what are your thoughts? On to the next post. Dungeon Master Uses AI for Evil by Reddit user Overvisual4984. So I play D&D in Discord with some friends who I go to college with. We all kind of float around in our campus's gaming club. Last semester, we started a campaign run by this guy that I had become friends with. He was very much into eccentric world building and genuinely had a very creative side to him, which makes what happened all the more tragic. He created this campaign on the planet Venus billions of years ago when it was habitable. The forces of hell were emerging though, and the climate was getting hotter and hotter. Initially, we had like 11 players, but after like 3 sessions, the campaign naturally whittled down to no more than 4 to 5 players per session. The relevant players were me, a Dragonborn cleric, my other good friend, a Tiefling druid, an acquaintance, a Yuan-Ti fighter, and a 40-year-old dude going back to college who just wanted to play D&D, playing a drow bard. The DM seemed to have a crush on Tiefling druid's player, and definitely tried flirting with her, both in-game using NPCs and out of game. It eventually became kind of obvious that she wasn't into him, so the flirtation just kind of fizzled out. The game got really good when the crap went down. The first town we had explored had now been evacuated due to the scorching heat. Other towns and cities were hiring mages to cast cold-based spells to keep the temperature habitable, and people traveled seldomly. Demons were ravaging the world as all this was going on. Time was running out, and we were desperate. Will we change history? Or will the Venus we all know come into being? Well, we will never find out, because our DM and Yuan-Ti's player turned out to be massive effing creeps. One day, after Yuan-Ti fighter slept with a young princess in exchange for a magic item that would dispel the heat in the town that we were in, Drow Bard then said, "Bro, tell me next time you bang a hot princess. We can have a devil's three-way." And they started laughing. Yuan-Ti fighter's player took this as a green light to invite Drow Bard to a private Discord that only he, the DM, and a couple of other dudes were in. It was full of AI-generated nudes of women they knew, along with deepfakes involving them in sexual situations with the DM and other creepy guys on the server. These images and videos included Tiefling Druid's player, my friend, and her 13-year-old sister that DM apparently found in an Instagram post. Dude, those creeps were already overstepping a boundary, but that's like a boundary beyond a boundary. That's just sickening. Drow Bard's player messaged me and my friend and told us what he saw and that he reported the server, but it was still up. We confronted the DM and Yuan-Ti's player, and they tried to deny it, but Drow Bard's player had screenshot what he saw, so they couldn't just delete the server and lie about it. Then, DM just admitted that he AI generated the nudes, but tried to make it out like it was no big deal because they were fake. My friend was especially pissed about her 13-year-old sister having her image used like that, but the DM just said, "I also used another AI to age her up first." She still wasn't having it, and he just kept downplaying what he did, and even eventually said, "It's not like I SA'd anyone. It's a private server anyway. Technically, I could sue you guys for invading it by proxy." Holy crap, the gall of this dude. If anything, DM should be worried about his sick ass getting sued for using Druid players and her sister's likeness to create that sickening media. Eventually, as she was angry and crying, I just told her, "Come on, let's go." And we all left and told the club organizers and got them banned and even eventually expelled from school. And they may be facing legal consequences, depending on how the Title IX deals with cases like this. The Discord is obviously nuked now, and their accounts are gone, and we haven't seen him or his creepy friend since. TLDR, Dungeon Master AI generates nudes of his player and her young sister, gets banned from the gaming club, and expelled from school. Man, talk about a sick MFer. Like OP said, it is a shame too, because otherwise, this guy sounded like a good dungeon master and made an intriguing setting and lore for the group to play in. But after discovering something like that, well, there is no coming back from that. And hopefully Druid's player and her sister get some sort of justice for that violation against them. It's a weird and scary world we live in now with the whole AI thing, and it doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon. I think we need some Kidium after that story. There we go. That is a bit better. But now, let's move on to the next post. Dungeon Master told me having my halfling rogue hide is, quote, too OP. By Reddit user, Sweet Kiwi. I have been playing D&D for several years now, with the same group. We started out with me as the DM, going through a starter campaign, and then I moved on to Strahd. A portion of the way through Strahd, they started a different campaign with another member as the DM because I lived over an hour away from them, and they wanted to play more. We still haven't gone back to Strahd. I recently moved to their area and joined a Dragonlance campaign that they had started. I've never played a character before and chose a halfling rogue, as this is my preferred playstyle. The first session turned out fine, but I could tell the DM was a little surprised at some of the damage numbers my sneak attacks were doing. The second session, we were trying to find a character who was kidnapped, and the DM presented it as time sensitive. We were attacked in a chamber, and I opened a door into the next room to see if the character was there. The DM then skipped my next 3 turns before I noticed, saying that because I left the room, I had removed myself from combat. I then tried to pick a lock and was told that I'd have to use my athletics check instead of sleight of hand, which was a +9 because it was, quote, too high. Hold up. Just because a character leaves an active battle area doesn't mean that they are out of turn order. They should still be able to move and take actions, even if they aren't fighting. I mean, it's not like time stops for a character that isn't in combat. And then, to make OP use athletics instead of sleight of hand for lockpicking because the skill is too high? That is like telling a wizard to use strength to cast a spell. Of course a rogue's sleight of hand is going to be high. I mean, they're a rogue. But let's keep going. In the third session, another character and I were trying to get information from an NPC. I tried a deception check, but was told that it failed without even getting the roll. I tried a persuasion approach, and the same thing. I then tried to pick the keys off the NPC, but was told that it couldn't happen because there was a counter in the way, and I was too small. The Dungeon Master later admitted that he had not previously mentioned there was a counter in the way. Later, I asked what I was supposed to do in that situation, and was told that I could have just asked to walk around the counter. I then asked, couldn't that have just been implied? And he responded, do you want me to just play everything for you? In the last session, we were in a fight with a creature that could only be affected by magic, which my character has none. I asked if there was anything I could do, and was told that I could encourage my team. So I spent 2 hours hiding and not playing. In the next encounter, I used a longbow and then a bonus hide action, but was told that my character would no longer be allowed to hide after attacking because it doesn't make sense realistically, and that it was too overpowered. We have a paladin with a 19 AC and 2 sorcerers, but me hiding is overpowered. So I'm done. I don't really know how to bring it up, and I don't want to burn any bridges in case they want to go back to playing Strahd, which has been brought up. By the way, the DM is my twin brother. Rant over. Well, to me, it just sounds like the DM of this story just wants to take everything away from OP's rogue that, well, makes them a rogue. Between nerfing them by saying that their sleight of hand is too high for lockpicking, to not even allowing them to roll for deception and persuasion, to not even allowing them to take their hide bonus action during combat, it sounds like the DM just didn't know how to account for a rogue being in the party while balancing encounters, and was a bit thrown off by the sneak attack damage that rogues are built for, and instead of rethinking encounters, just decided to strip away everything that makes a rogue a rogue. If anything, I would suggest talking to the DM, seeing how it is OP's twin brother, and explaining that taking away all the things rogues can do would be like taking away spells from spellcasters. Hopefully, the DM would then take into account that there is a rogue in the party, and adjust things accordingly, instead of just nerfing OP to oblivion. That way, OP doesn't have to leave the campaign. And here's hoping that they can also start up OP's Strahd campaign again. On to the next post. Had a stereotypical neckbeard DM and stupid players punish me for playing, quote, Raptor Jesus in the session I wasn't even there for. By Reddit user, Action A Go-Go Baby. We were supposed to be playing a campaign with, quote, Oriental themes. Yes, that's the word he used. And he asked everyone to make characters that would fit that style. The DM was the kind of dude who lived and breathed anime, had body pillows, unashamedly talked in real life about his, quote, waifu tier list, etc. You get the idea. This was before the internet was seriously picking up enough to allow people to play online, so local was all we had, and games were sparse. I decided I wanted to make a character with a sort of mystic/old wise man vibe, but I'd also always wanted to try a Dragonborn style character. So I ran it by the DM, and he liked the idea of my character looking a bit like one of those dragons from Japanese lore and myth with a beard. Great, right? Sorted. Officially a Dragonborn cleric, but you get the idea. Anyway, the game starts, and someone at the table, can't remember who, says, "Oh, you're playing a cleric and a Dragonborn? That's like the Raptor Jesus meme, right? Is that why you're playing Raptor Jesus? Because of a meme?" I stare at him blankly, as, to be honest, that was a super weird leap for anyone to make. But eventually, I said, no, that was not the inspiration at all. However, I then noticed the DM giving me a weird look, but paid it no mind. The whole table started joking about how my character, Raptor Jesus, was definitely that meme, and how funny it was that the DM let it slide in a, quote, serious campaign. So, I'm away for the second session because of family issues, but come back to session 3 and get told, before I even sat down or said hello, "Roll a new character." I'm confused, obviously, so I ask what the DM is talking about. He goes on to explain that I, quote, tricked him into allowing a meme character at the table, and that he expected better of me, and how it was only appropriate that my character got crushed to death by an avalanche, that the rest of the players somehow survived. I asked again what the heck he was talking about, but he just said, "Roll a new character or leave, and no memes this time. Don't F with my setting." So, I left. Now, that is a really stupid reason to kill off a player's character, even if it would have been inspired by a meme, especially when OP wasn't even there to defend it. I mean, it should have been obvious enough to the DM that OP didn't base their character off of Raptor Jesus, just based off of OP telling the other players that it wasn't. Though, as it sounds, the other players would not let up on the joke, and maybe that was why the DM decided to off him. And I'm with OP in his decision to leave after that and not make a new character. I mean, if the DM was that sensitive to something so minuscule, then I can only imagine that he would not make for that great of a DM. Though, what are your thoughts on this one? Was OP leaving the right decision? Or do you think he should have made a new character and stayed in the game? Be sure to let us all know in the comments, because, you know, engagement. Let's move on. Is it bad etiquette to voluntarily fail checks? By Reddit user SestyCloseSound9854. I'm playing a halfling sorcerer and have been leaning into the born lucky vibe. He grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth, and things always seemed to magically fall into place for him. As a result, he is pretty cocky and lazy. The last session, we killed a necromancer and were investigating her magical workshop. My character decided to put his feet up and, quote, keep watch, while really looking at himself in the mirror. I even asked to make a performance check to look busy, and the DM seemed to find it funny and was playing along. The rest of the party, a rogue, artificer, and cleric, investigated the library and seemed to be having a great time. I feel like I often take up a lot of space as the, quote, charisma guy, so it was good to be able to watch and not feel the anxiety of talking too much. They ended up finding this hand-sized tablet covered in strange arcane runes. They all make arcana and religion checks, but fail to identify what it does. The rogue then comes up to me and asks if I knew anything about it. I describe my character looking it over idly once, before tossing it back and saying that he doesn't know what it is. My character isn't really the type to have studied magic or the gods at all, so he suggested that we take it back to the court mage who sent us. Out of character, personally, it always slightly takes me out of the game when the sage wizard doesn't understand a magic contraption, but the 8 intelligence barbarian gets a nat 20. The rogue complained after the session that I, quote, should have just rolled just in case, because that would give the party the best chance of succeeding, and I was letting the team down. I feel like my character contributes loads, but I also enjoy playing characters with flaws. I shoulder a lot of the social interactions, and in the last combat alone, saved the party's ass with fear and counterspell. I feel like he is being a douche who is managing my character's decisions, but want outside perspective on whether I am the problem, but don't know it. The dungeon master told me after that he has no problem, and I feel Rogue, who knows nothing about my character's backstory, is being unreasonable. Well, I personally don't think that OP is in the wrong here at all. If a player feels that their character wouldn't care about something, or that it wouldn't make any sense that their character would have any known information on a certain thing, then it's their decision to roll for it or not. In this case, I think Rogue was just being a tad metagamey with his dissatisfaction of OP not rolling for it, and got a bit salty that they didn't get instant gratification on the item that they found. Though, at this point, I would just let it go. But if that type of thing continues, then have a talk with the rogue player about why you didn't roll for it. Though, what do you guys think on this one? But that is all I have for you today. As always, I appreciate all of you, especially if you like and subscribe, and may your games remain horror story free. Until next time.